Hi everyone, we're Adeche, he's Solomon.
And she's Adwoa.
And you're listening to Afro Mythos, the podcast where we discuss all things African mythology,
folklore,
and culture.
Yes, it has been a while and we will get back to our regular posting soon. But for now, we have a very special Mythos convo for you.
We had the pleasure of seeing Anansi the Spider at the Unicorn Theatre, which is an amazing show covering 3 immersive Anansi folktales.
Honestly, it's a must-see. The acting is amazing, the stories are wonderful, and the staging and music are 10/10.
It's in the Unicorn Theatre till the 16th of November, after which they will move to Birmingham, so please go watch it if you can, it's so great.
Anyway, we had a very interesting conversation with the wonderful director, Robin Belfield. So enjoy.
I'm Robin Belfield. I'm the Associate Director at the Unicorn Theatre, and I'm also directing this production of Anansi the Spider.
So excited to see it. Very excited. So Robin, what are your earliest memories of hearing Anansi stories and who told them to you?
So I don't know when the first time. They've always felt a part of my storytelling heritage. Mm-hmm. My mum is from the Bahamas, and that's where I was born. I remember hearing about Anansi as a derivative or a differentiation of the other stories that we have in the Bahamas about Barabi, right, and who is a rabbit but has the same sort of qualities, the trickster, the clever, witty, outsmarting other bigger, larger animals. So I came through Anansi via Barabi and the stories about him. So I don't quite know when exactly, but Anansi's always been there. And I think aware of him at school as well. And you go, I remember finding the one book in the school library that had any kind of, grew up in the 80s, so any kind of cultural diversity in school libraries. Thankfully, there's a bit more now. But, and you'd latch onto it. So you'd go, oh, that story feels more like me, or I've got connection to that. My dad's side of the family is British. And so there's also been a keen interest in the Western folklore and storytelling and the mythology that we are used to in this country, especially at schools with the Greeks and the Romans. And love all that too. And actually from my mixed heritage, I really love the fact that I feel a connection to both. Nancy's always been there and reappearing and emerging in different ways.
So did you grow up here?
Yes, so I was born in the Bahamas, but then we moved very soon. My older brother and I've got a younger sister who was born here, and we moved when I was still a toddler, really.
Yeah, I think same.
Yeah.
When you imagine Anansi in this production, what qualities are most important to you?
So I think in this production we meet Anansi 3 times. Mm-hmm. So we tell 3 different stories, and Anansi changes in each one. The premise of the production is that not one actor is Anansi, that there are 3 storytellers, and they all tell these 3 stories. And in each one, Anansi is slightly different. And so what I love about the qualities is just that, actually. So it's hard to pick one, because each of the different stories has a slightly different nuance to who he is, how he behaves, whether he wins the day or whether he learns from, he doesn't win the day and has to learn from it. And that's the quality I really love about Anansi, is that complexity of character, that he's not just the goodie or the baddie, or he is the trickster, that actually he's got a little bit of all of that, and he's the trickster and he's clever, but he still sometimes gets outwitted by the unexpected places or people or other characters, and learns from that. And I think there's a lesson in that for all of us, right? We're all complex, and we've all got the capability of being clever and wily, but we've also got the capability to learn and be taught a lesson.
Just something of what you said about Anansi can be, I guess, the different people or the different narrators. That's something really important about Anansi, because sometimes, although he's not seen as a god or a deity, he's a story force itself, and it's that essence of the storytelling itself that can be anyone that sort of is telling this Anansi story becomes, in a way, Anansi, because you now hold that story.
And that's right. And I think that sense that one of the stories that we don't cover in our play is the story about how Anansi got the stories, but it's sort of inbuilt all the way through that connection, that Anansi storyteller, that completion of that, which is great.
So which version of Anansi feels closest to you, and how did you choose which version of Anansi to incorporate into the performance?
Well, I think we see different versions of Anansi. What's clever about the script that Justin has written is we take 3 stories and it moves as the stories move. So the first story is very much set in West Africa, in Ghana, and Anansi feels the most spider in that. Right. And then the middle story, as the stories then make their first big journey across the Atlantic, and we know the stories came during the transatlantic slave trade with those people. And Anansi is sort of in that half man, half spider vibe. And our second story is very much set in the Caribbean. And then our third story comes with that wave of people movement as people came from the West Indies, from the Caribbean to the UK. And so the third story feels like modern Britain, and that kind of urban understanding of how those... So Anansi sort of shifts very subtly and sort of grows as well, grows up and slightly changes.
I was just gonna say, I find it so interesting because you know how Anansi evolves as he goes through different cultures, and then almost now we're at the point with this multicultural London where yes, you have those that come from the Windrush generation in the West Indies, but then you also have the first or second generation like Ghanaians, all having these different versions of the stories and the character now meeting in this, I guess, melting pot. And it will just be interesting to see how they relate to the different versions of Anansi. So it's as much for the children as it is for the adults who might have grown up.
I think that's right. And our production starts here at the Unicorn, but then moves to Birmingham. And again, in Birmingham, another city that is very diverse in its population and has people, as you say, from across the diaspora there. And so that'll be really lovely to see these stories told to a London audience and then the Birmingham audience and hopefully beyond as well.
It'll be interesting to see which Anansi people resonate with. I'd love to see the commentary on that. Is it the one in Ghana? Is it the Caribbean? Is it when it's more in London, it's more multicultural? It would be so cool to see which story people relate to.
Oral storytelling is communal and improvisational, really. So how do you capture that spirit in theatre setting?
I think that's really true, and I think what's brilliant about the script that we're working with, it has that at its heart, right? It's not a play where you go, character A enters and talks to character B and everybody plays the same character. We've got 3 brilliant actors who start as storytellers, and their opening, they don't say these words, but their opening offer is, we're going to tell you a story. And from there, they tell the story for each other, so they're part narrators, they're part characters, they come in and out of different characters. And the way that we will, so the design of the theatre, we've got this wonderful tree that our designer has created, and a lot of the audience will be sat on the floor, so it will really give us that sense of storytelling, communal storytelling. Theatre for me is an act of community, right? That's what it is. We often end up in the dark as a theatre goer, watching and feeling like we're on our own. And actually, I think theatre was never designed for that, really, which is why I love working here. I love working at another theatre, which I won't mention, up the road with no roof on it, but where the audience can see each other and the audience we can share those responses. You can laugh at something, we can look at the person next to us and we go, you're enjoying that too. And so much of modern theatre is like, we're sitting in the dark and we don't know whether to laugh or, absolutely. But theatre's different. Theatre is that shared space where we're telling each other stories. So what's lovely for me about this play is it really brings it back to that. And for young people, that's really important. That they have that opportunity to see these stories that maybe they've got a connection with, maybe they heard it at bedtime, but maybe that's just with their mum or their dad or their auntie. Now they get to share it with their friends. Or maybe they haven't heard these stories before and they get to go, well, this is new. And what do you think? We learn from each other and then we go out talking about it. And that's amazing.
And it kind of feels like how the stories would have been traditionally told, like, you know, around an intimate setting with like a griot or more griots and like people just listening and like you're really engaged if it's like set out that way. So I think it's awesome how the staging has been done.
Definitely. Is music incorporated into the...
Music is. So we've got a couple of moments where the company sing. We've got lots of drumming, but we've also got lots of sound as well. So some music, definitely, and also some sound where some of the actors make those sounds themselves using percussive instruments. Some of the sound will be recorded, and again, I love the idea of that we journey through the play. So the first story feels very acoustic, you know, it feels very, I mean, we'll supplement it with some sound effects, of course, but it feels very acoustic in terms of the sound that's made by the storytellers. And then as the stories progress, as we get into a more modern retelling of Anansi, the sounds are different. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. We've got different beats or rhythms or electronic sounds as we've moved from the historic telling of Anansi through to a modern retelling of Anansi.
Honestly, I love how the narration and how the plot sort of develops is echoing the evolution of Anansi and the storytelling itself. That just sounds so amazing because there's no context and a subtext behind the decisions that are made.
And an understanding that it will carry on, right? They're not done in the past. That I'm sure in another 100 years they'll be reinterpreted again, and it's exciting to see that continuation of these stories.
I think they really are timeless stories. It just goes to show how long they've survived and how, like, who would have thought, like, you know, a griot, like, years and years and hundreds of years ago, like, sitting around telling their kids the story, and, like, all the way to now, we've got a theatre production telling the story. It's like, it's amazing. It's so awesome.
It's exciting.
So, what do you hope children and adults leave the theatre understanding about Anansi?
I hope they understand Anansi's complexity. And there's only so much we can do in a 50-minute show. We've only got 3 stories. And I hope they go, Anansi is deeper, richer than I thought he was. And I hope there's an invitation there to go and discover more for yourselves. Do you know what I mean? And not only Anansi, but the other stories from parts of Africa, from parts of the Caribbean, and indeed parts of London or other places in the UK. But where are the other stories that perhaps we haven't heard, or perhaps I want to find out more about? And I think it's always about inviting a curiosity and a conversation. So that's what I hope. I hope everybody leaves the theatre chatting and talking about it, and which bits did you like, which bits did you find funny. That's always great. But I really hope that they get a sense of that there's so much more to discover. And for me, I hope that's what the production offers, is that insight into sort of suggesting, there's more to find here. We're just the beginning. And then it's over to you to tell your own stories, or tell the stories in your own way. And as we've just said, continue those stories with your children and your grandchildren, and hopefully they get passed on. And
it's almost like passing along that toolkit for a new archetype of storytelling. There's a new character that you can now add into your storytelling.
Absolutely.
Love the concept.
And where do you see the connections with the other characters that you know, the cartoon characters that you may be watching, or the characters in comic books, and because they're all connected, right? They're all connected in this great sort of web of storytelling, and it's exciting.
Even Spider-Man.
Exactly. And if that's a brilliant thing to kind of go, where's that fit? How does Anansi and Spider-Man connect? And they very much do connect. And do you know what I mean? And you know, where are there other connections as well? Anansi the Spider, in 3 words, I would say it's funny, it's musical, and it's a little bit mischievous. I really hope you come and see Anansi the Spider at the Unicorn Theatre. It's going to be great.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed. And yes, we will be back very soon with new episodes.
But for now, stay safe, and thank you for enjoying the wonderful world of African mythology with us, your hosts,
Adwoa and Solomon.
Solomon and Adwoa,
whichever way
you want to say it.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.